Chapter 5. Caden. Sean, why are you still here? Don't you have classes early Monday morning? I knew the answer as soon as I asked the question. It was quiet and comfortable, but I thought he wanted a second chance at me, to prove to himself that he could close the deal, whatever that was. My guess, we hadn't got into that yet. I guessed all the drinking on Sean's part had put a stop to whatever he had in mind. Scratching his head, hunching his shoulders, Sean mumbled, "I thought I could stay the night, we'd get to know each other, and ride with you in the morning. It's so quiet here. I need a place to wind down and think." I knew the minute I'd agreed to go to my place with Sean it was a bad idea, and lately I'd been making awful decisions whenever Austin was around, and this was no exception. Taking in a long breath, I surveyed Sean, smelling of alcohol. I knew when I was a college student I'd had to study day and night, and some mornings I'd wake up and I had books covering my bed where I'd slept with them. However, there were some students who could party all night, read a passage one time, and pass the tests. With me, I had to be sober and studying night and day. I could be wrong, but Sean didn't appear to be the type who was genius material. Sean proceeded to make a case for him being here and not leaving. "You know, I told you about my roommate having parties. I couldn't get any rest, and it is so quiet here." He stepped out of the bed, still naked. I pretended not to notice, but it was hard. "You got something I could use to shave with?" he questioned. "Restroom, there is an extra toothbrush and razor." I'd saved that for Gray, but he wasn't coming over anytime soon. Sean wobbled to the room and stared into the mirror, leaned in and gazed at his teeth. "I have to stop drinking because I'm looking your friend's age." "Who?" "Lane." I questioned. "No. That older man who seems to be around all the time. You know, Grayle something. He came over this morning just before you'd gone to work and said he wanted to apologize. I guess I caught him by surprise, and he didn't say what he needed to apologize for. If you see him, apologize to him for me being so rude." "How were you rude to him?" I questioned in an absent-minded way, because I thought about how happy I felt that Gray had taken the time to come over. I never thought about how it looked to him to see Sean in my bed naked, until Sean interrupted my thoughts with, "I greeted him naked. The way you are now." I barked. "Yeah. And I may have said something about his age. Well, I remember now, I did say that he dressed nice for an old dude." "You said that to Gray?" I growled. "He might be close to 40, but there wasn't a man who could touch the way he dressed and looked. There weren't many men who had a face like his, and those eyes were something out of a movie. I could rack my brain, and never would I find a man that had eyes that blue, and a face as gorgeous as his at any age. I think you should go, Sean. Brush your teeth, shower and shave, and get the fuck out." He turned to me. "What did I do?" "I thought you were fucking around with him until you found you someone younger." "I didn't know you were." "In love with him?" "I am most assuredly in love with that old dude, as you said. And he's not old. Your parents are old. My parents are old. He's in his prime, and so am I. I'm primed to love and appreciate a man his age, and furthermore, I want to be with him for the rest of my life if he'll have me. Now please leave. I have an early day tomorrow, and I need some rest." Sean dressed and glanced over at me as I waited for him to leave, so I could lock the door. After today, I didn't know if I would ever sleep again. However, I hadn't taken into account that I was a person who didn't sleep until I'd exhausted myself. And with Lane missing, I had to cover everything that he'd taken on, for example, making sure that the young guys and girls didn't spend their time on their phones when they should be working. I didn't know how he did that. It was a chore trying to get through to them that they couldn't take pictures of everything they did throughout the day. I woke the next morning talking in my sleep. I wished it had to do with Gray, but it was about my coffee shop. I remember talking to Brian about ordering the coffee blend he and Lane had created. Cade loves Gray. The online orders couldn't keep up with the sparse shipping department, and I was arguing with Brian that he'd gotten me into something I wasn't prepared for. Thank goodness that was just a dream, or more like a nightmare. I'd taken my insecurities and displeasure to bed, and with all that was going on with me, Gray, and my business, I wasn't getting any rest. When I turned over and looked at the clock, it was 8 a.m., and Lane and Brian would be on my ass about a business I'd gone into to have something to do while I discovered my true passion. I'd been trying to find that out since I was a child. At first, I'd wanted to be a golfer, but that didn't work out. I quit that notion when I turned 10, and I wanted to play soccer with my friends, and then the baseball kick and football, because all the handsome guys were ballers. Then the arts, because all the known cute gay guys were artists or actors. I even played Hamlet in high school. I ran my mother ragged, ferrying me around from one community audition to another. Then the commercials. I thought I'd become a child star or be known for selling millions of jockey underwear, like another child star, I couldn't remember his name, who made millions by showing his perfect butt and had his pick of the most handsome men in Hollywood. Finally, I'd wanted to be a dancer, and the only thing that got me was an athletic physique. Nothing is wasted in life, my mother had said, and she was right. I thought that was the first thing Gray liked about me, my strong legs and hard ass. There were a few things I liked about him, hearing him moan and call out my name when I penetrated him. I wasn't aware that I would enjoy anything as much as that. It took longer than I thought to get dressed and head over to the shop. I walked in, tired and not wanting to be scolded. I thought owning your own place had perks, and now I discovered it was nothing but work, no life, and others telling you what to do. You have to talk to your staff. If they can't get those orders out on time and get the storeroom organized better, then they will be fired, Lane said, before I'd had my coffee, bagel, and fruit. I thought that was your job. Nope. I write them up for infractions, and you warn them. They just laugh when it comes to me because every time I try to fire them, Brian rehires them. He said we can't fire them because we don't have enough personnel. I placed my head on my desk, sucked in a deep breath, raised my feeble hand, grasped my coffee mug, and took a gulp of coffee. Damn, but this is the best coffee I've tasted in my life, I yelled. What the fuck is this? It's your special blend. You know, the one named after you and Gray. We can't keep it in, and the online sales have skyrocketed. We've had to hire more people, and still we don't have enough personnel to keep up with the orders, and we're backed up with orders because of that. Get more people. We've tried. Haven't you heard there's a labor shortage? Not unless you want me to find them on the street. Give the homeless a job. There aren't any homeless in Nevermore, I raised my head to protest. We've tapped all of the students who are looking for jobs, Lane said, and their friends looking for part-time work. I glanced out at the people standing in line for coffee and their sugar highs, and the guys and girls walking around with t-shirts with my logo on them, and I realized that they used to be my customers, yet now they were my employees. Well, then hire the elderly. Not every person over 65 has a pension and Social Security. What about veterans? Didn't Parker say that our town has an unusually large population of them? Wounded Inc. couldn't have tapped all of that population. I'll see about it. I smiled because I thought that just maybe I'd catch a break with this shop. We're using available personnel in our shipping department. Brian wants to leave, but we can't afford to lose him. When it comes to hiring people and surrounding himself with good people who will work and love what they're doing, he's the best at selecting them, Lane added. He turned and headed for the door, and then swiveled around. Oh, I forgot. Gray's been calling since Sunday. He didn't sound too happy when I said you were busy. Why the fuck did you do that, Lane? How would you like it if I'd told that to Scott? That's not the same thing. Scott and I live together. You. Just don't do that again. Grayle means the world to me. There was a misunderstanding, we're going to work it out. Not with that creepy guy who follows you around. He's totally bad news. Tell me something I don't know, I said, stretching my arms upward. Lane always watching the customers, and the shop turned, and his eyes grew wide. What is it? I thought one of the customers had become unruly. Grayle is walking through the doors now, and he's not stopping for coffee. He has a look on his face that he's not taking no for an answer. At first I thought Lane was fucking with me, but he wasn't the type to get my hopes up high. When the door swung open without the benefit of a knock, Gray stood with a sour look on his face, and he couldn't have looked sexier if someone had painted his expression along with a naked torso. He'd resembled one of those perfect naked statues in Italy, but with clothes on. When Grayle entered and glared at Lane, he raised his eyebrows, twisted his mouth, and crept out of the office, closing the door behind him. Gray moved his back to the door, his steely eyes on me, and locked the door, and without a word closed the shutters where no one could see inside my office. Then Gray turned to me with the same expression. "What the fuck was Sean doing at your new apartment?" he bellowed. I stood and strolled over to him. "Who the fuck wants to know, and why?" I barked. He didn't expect me to use an expletive, and I thought from the tightening of his gorgeous lips he was trying to hold back a chuckle. I guessed we both surprised each other, because I'd never seen him angry to the point where he'd use the F-bomb at me. "I want to know." "Me? Your boyfriend, man, or whatever you consider me as." "I consider you a friend, and not a good one at that," I said, emphasizing each word. He stepped in my direction and placed his large hand behind my head, swiped his tongue across his bottom lip, and brought me in for a blistering hard kiss. I bit his lip, he bit mine.